The night was cold, and the streets of the alien city were darker than usual. A mother walked slowly with her 2 children. Her arms wrapped tightly around them, her clothes were torn, her face was pale, and her eyes showed pain that words could not describe. The children clung to her side, their small bodies shivering in the freezing wind. No one looked at them with kindness. The alien society around them had no heart for the weak. Shops were filled with food, stalls were bright with lights, but nothing was meant for them. They were outcasts, rejected, unwanted. In this cruel society, the strong lived in luxury, and the weak were thrown away like trash. The mother tried to hide her tears. She wanted to be strong in front of her children, but her heart broke every time she saw their little hands rubbing their empty stomachs. "Mother, I am hungry," whispered the youngest child with trembling lips. She pressed him close, whispering back, "I know, my love. Be strong." Her voice cracked, but she forced herself to keep walking. Aliens passed by, some laughed at them, others turned their heads away. One merchant shouted, "Go away, beggars. You bring bad luck." The mother lowered her head and moved quickly. She was not surprised anymore. Every day was the same, rejection after rejection. But every word cut her heart like a knife. They reached a corner where broken stones covered the ground. This was their home for many nights. The children lay down on the cold surface, pulling each other close for warmth. The mother sat beside them, wrapping her arms around both. Her body was shaking, but she tried to smile. She wanted her children to believe that tomorrow might be better, even if she did not believe it herself. The city around them was alive with noise. Bright towers, loud markets, strange vehicles passing by. But for them, the world was silent and empty. It felt like they did not exist, like they were shadows fading into the night. The eldest child, with tired eyes, asked, "Mother, why do they hate us? What did we do wrong?" The mother's throat tightened. She had no answer. How could she explain cruelty to a child? She stroked his hair gently and whispered, "You did nothing wrong, my son. This world is blind. It cannot see your worth." Her words were soft, but inside her heart, fear grew stronger. She thought of the future. How many more nights could they survive like this? Her children were growing weaker each day, and she herself felt her strength fading. Food was impossible to find, work was denied to her, and every door she knocked on was slammed shut in her face. The wind howled through the empty streets. Children tried to sleep, but hunger kept their eyes open. The mother hummed a broken lullaby, her voice shaking yet filled with love. It was the only comfort she could give. Her eyes lifted toward the alien sky, filled with strange stars, silent. Prayers formed in her heart, prayers for a miracle, prayers that someone, anyone, might show mercy, but deep down, she knew this world had no mercy. The society they lived in had rejected them long ago. To them, she was weak. Her children were useless. They did not belong here. She tightened her embrace around her children, whispering promises she was not sure she could keep. "I will protect you. I will never let you go." Tears slid down her cheeks as she kissed their foreheads. From a distance, laughter echoed. Rich aliens celebrated in warm homes. Golden lights shone from high towers, and here, in the shadows, a mother and her children were forgotten. The contrast was cruel, almost unbearable. It was as if the city itself wanted them erased. The night grew colder. The mother pulled a torn cloth over her children. Her own body shivered, but she ignored it. She had given up everything for them. Her dreams, her dignity, even her health. Now she lived only for their survival. As the stars faded slowly into the early dawn, the mother's eyes remained open. Watching, waiting, she did not know what the next day would bring. Would it be another day of hunger? Another day of rejection? Or would fate finally send a hand to lift them out of the darkness? She held her children tighter, her heart filled with both fear and hope. In the cruel world around them, a storm of pain raged every day. But somewhere deep inside her, a tiny spark of belief survived, a belief that one day, someone would see them. Someone would give them a second chance, and so the night ended with silence. The streets remained empty, the stars faded, but in the shadows of despair, suspense grew. Because fate was moving quietly, and the lives of this broken family were about to change forever. The morning light touched the broken streets of the alien city. Shadows stretched across the cold stones where the mother and her children had spent the night. The children woke up slowly, their stomachs empty, their lips dry. The mother brushed the dust from their hair, whispering softly, "Wake up, my loves. We must try again today." The little one rubbed his eyes and clung to her arm. "I am hungry, mother," he said with a weak voice. The older child said nothing, but his eyes were hollow. He had learned to suffer in silence, but his mother could see the pain in every glance. The mother stood, pulling both children to their feet. Her legs felt heavy, her body weak, but she forced herself to move. She could not let them see her weakness. She needed to believe, at least for them, that hope was still possible. The streets were already busy. Merchants shouted about their goods. Bright lights decorated stalls filled with fruits, meat, and bread. The smell of food filled the air, but for the little family, it was torture. Every scent made the children's hunger worse. They approached a food stall. The mother lowered her head and spoke softly. "Please, sir, can you give my children just one piece of bread?" The alien merchant looked at her with cold eyes. "You again? Beggars are not welcome here." He pushed her back roughly, almost knocking the little one to the ground. The crowd laughed as the mother caught her child. Her heart ached, but she pulled them away. The humiliation burned inside her, but she swallowed her pride, because pride would not feed her children. They moved further, toward the market square. She saw waste near a food cart, scraps thrown away. She hurried to pick it up, but another alien kicked it aside. "You have no right to touch that. Go starve in the alleys where you belong." The mother froze, fear in her chest. Her children clung to her hands, their eyes wide with terror. She pulled them back into the crowd, her heart beating fast. Everywhere they turned, they were chased, mocked, rejected. The sun climbed higher, and the heat made the hunger worse. The children's steps slowed. The youngest stumbled, his knees hitting the ground. The mother lifted him quickly, holding him close. Her own stomach ached with emptiness. She had not eaten in 2 days, but she could not let them see. She whispered, "Just a little longer, my loves. We will find something." Hours passed, and no kindness came. The society around them only grew harsher. Strong aliens feasted in the open. Children of the rich laughed with sweet drinks in their hands, and in the shadows of the streets, a mother and her children starved. The difference was cruel. It was like living in 2 different worlds at the same time. Finally, the mother led her children away from the market. She could not bear the humiliation anymore. They reached a narrow alley where broken crates lay abandoned. She sat with her children, covering them with her arms. Tears filled her eyes, but she turned her face so they would not see. The eldest spoke softly, his voice trembling. "Mother, are we going to die here?" Her chest tightened, and for a moment, she had no answer. She wanted to lie, to tell him no, but she could not form the words. Instead, she hugged them both tightly and whispered, "I will not let anything happen to you, I promise." Inside, she feared her promise might be broken. The day dragged on, shadows grew long. The little one cried from hunger until he had no more tears. The eldest tried to be strong, holding his brother, but even he could not hide his weakness anymore. Their bodies trembled, their faces pale. The mother felt her heart shatter with every passing hour. She thought of her past, when she had once been part of this society. She had believed in rules, in order, in community. But when she lost her status, when she became weak, the same society that once praised her turned against her. Now, she and her children were nothing, thrown away like broken tools. Night returned, and the cold came with it. The family huddled together in silence. The mother's arms wrapped around her children. Her stomach growled, her head spun with weakness. But her mind kept working. she could not stop thinking of ways. To survive another day, would she steal? Would she beg again tomorrow? She hated herself for even thinking it, but her children's lives were worth more than her shame. As the stars filled the sky, the eldest child whispered again, "Mother, will tomorrow be different?" Her eyes stung with tears, she pressed a kiss to his forehead and forced a smile. "Yes, tomorrow will be different, my son," but her voice shook and deep down, she did not know if she was telling the truth. The city around them was alive with lights. Music and laughter echoed from far away, but here, in the shadows of hunger, a mother and her children lay on cold stones, waiting for a tomorrow that seemed like a dream, and yet, somewhere beyond the city, fate was moving quietly. Something was coming, something that would change everything. But the mother and her children did not know it yet. For now, all they felt was hunger. All they knew was pain, and the cruel alien society continued to look away. The sky was darker than ever that night. Heavy clouds covered the stars, and the moon hid behind their shadows. The streets of the alien city were almost empty. Only the sound of cold wind moved through the alleys. In one corner, on broken stones, the mother and her children lay together, their bodies weak, their stomachs empty, their hearts filled with fear. The little one whimpered softly, pressing his face into his mother's chest. "I cannot sleep, mother," he whispered. His voice was thin, almost fading. The mother stroked his hair and kissed his forehead. "Close your eyes, my love. Tomorrow will be better," she said. Her voice was calm, but inside her soul trembled with despair. The eldest child sat quietly beside her. His eyes were open, staring at the distant lights of the city. He did not cry, but his silence spoke louder than tears. He had begun to understand the truth. He knew their tomorrow might not be better, and that thought weighed heavily on his young heart. The mother looked at both of them. She could feel their bones through their thin skin. She could hear their shallow breaths. And she knew, if things did not change soon, they might not survive another day. Her heart ached with guilt. She felt powerless in a world that had turned its back on them. Around them, the city continued its cruel routine. Rich aliens enjoyed their banquets. Warm lights glowed in tall towers. Laughter and music floated through the air. But in this corner, the family was invisible, forgotten by the society that had rejected them. The mother leaned back against the cold wall, her arms wrapped tightly around her children. She closed her eyes for a moment, and in the silence, a thought came to her. What if this is our last night? Her chest tightened, but she kept the fear hidden. She could not let her children see her breaking. The wind grew stronger, cutting through the air. Thin clothes, the children shivered, pressing closer to her. The little one whispered again, "Mother, I am so hungry. Will we eat tomorrow?" The words pierced her heart like a blade. She held him tighter, whispering softly, "Yes, my son. Tomorrow we will eat." But as she said it, tears slid silently down her cheeks. She hated herself for lying. Yet she knew a child could not live on truth when the truth was only despair. Hours passed and sleep came slowly. The mother stayed awake, watching over her children, her eyes lifted to the sky. Through the gaps in the clouds, she saw faint stars. For the first time in many nights, she began to whisper a prayer. Her voice was trembling, soft, almost broken. "If there is mercy left in this universe, please let someone see us, let someone save them." Her hands shook as she prayed. She was not asking for herself anymore. She was ready to endure pain, ready to suffer. But her children, she could not bear to lose them. She would trade her life for theirs without hesitation. She would give anything for them to see another sunrise with full stomachs. The eldest child turned his head slowly and looked at her. "Mother," he whispered. She blinked quickly, wiping her tears before he could see. "Yes, my son?" She asked, forcing a smile. Do you think there are good people somewhere? Someone who would help us?" Her heart stopped for a moment. The question was heavy. She wanted to answer with hope, but the truth was that she had not seen kindness for a very long time. Still, she could not crush his fragile belief. "Yes," she whispered gently. "There are good people. We just have not found them yet." The boy closed his eyes, holding onto her words as if they were the only light in the darkness. The night deepened. The wind grew colder. The mother's body shook, but she refused to rest. Her eyes scanned the street again and again. Every sound made her heart jump. She feared that someone cruel might come to harm them, and yet she also hoped that a stranger might appear with kindness. That hope was the only fire left in her heart. Near dawn, the children finally slept, their small hands clutching her torn clothes. The mother stayed awake, her back against the wall, her eyes burning from exhaustion. She whispered once more to the stars, "This may be our last night, but if tomorrow brings a miracle, I will never forget it." She leaned her head against the wall, her body weak, her spirit fragile, and as the sky began to shift from black to gray, she felt the weight of despair pressing on her chest. But beneath that despair, a tiny spark of faith still lived. It was fragile, almost gone, but it was enough to whisper one last promise to her children. "I will not give up. Not tonight, not tomorrow." The city began to wake again. The cruel alien society prepared for another day, and the mother held her children close, unknowing that soon their lives would change forever. This night, the last night of hope, was not truly their end. It was the beginning of something they could not yet imagine. The dawn broke slowly over the alien city. Golden light spilled across the tall towers. But in the shadows of the streets, the family still sat in silence. The mother's eyes were red from staying awake. Her children still slept in her arms. Their faces were pale, their bodies weak, but they held on to her as if she was the only warmth left in the world. The streets began to fill again. Merchants opened their stalls, strange machines rolled by, and the voices of the city grew louder. But for the little family, the noise was meaningless. They had no place in this world. To the society around them, they were nothing but dust. The mother stroked her children's hair gently, her heart heavy. With fear, she whispered to herself, "If no one helps us today, I don't know if they will survive another night." Her voice cracked, but she quickly wiped her tears. She had to stay strong, at least on the outside. Hours passed, and the day grew hotter. The family tried once again to search for food, but the results were the same as always. Cold eyes, harsh words, mocking laughter, even scraps were denied to them. The little one cried softly, his hunger too great to hide. The mother carried him in her arms, though her own body shook with weakness. And then, for the first time in many days, something unusual happened. A figure walked into the city streets. Not one of the cruel aliens, not one of the merchants. This figure was tall, with broad shoulders, and skin unlike the others. His eyes were sharp but gentle, his clothes simple but strong. He was human, a stranger in a place where humans were rarely seen. The mother noticed him first. She froze, pulling her children close. Her heart beat faster. She did not know who he was or why he was here, but she could feel something different about him. He did not walk like the others. His steps were steady. His eyes did not look down with disgust. Instead, he looked around with curiosity, as if seeing the world for the first time. The human paused at the market square. He watched the merchants shouting, the aliens laughing, and then his eyes caught something in the corner. A mother with 2 children, sitting on broken stones. He frowned. His gaze fixed on them. There was pain in his expression, as if their suffering touched something deep inside him. The mother felt his eyes on her and quickly lowered her head. She tried to hide. She had learned that strangers usually brought danger. She whispered to her eldest child, "Do not look. Keep your head down." The boy obeyed, but his curiosity burned. He dared to glance at the human, and in that single moment, he felt something he had never felt before. It was not cruelty, not rejection. It was concern. The human began to walk toward them. The crowd shifted, watching him. Some aliens whispered with suspicion, "What is he doing?" Why would he go near them? But the human ignored them. His steps were slow, deliberate. The mother's heart pounded harder. Her body screamed for her to move, to run, but her legs would not obey. She was trapped between fear and hope. He stopped only a few steps away. His voice was calm, deep, and steady. "Are you all right?" he asked. The words were simple, but to the mother they felt like lightning. No one had asked her that question in a very long time. Her lips trembled, but she could not answer. Her throat was dry, her pride wounded. She only hugged her children. Closer, afraid this was a cruel trick, the human crouched down slowly, lowering himself to their level. His eyes were kind, but filled with sadness. He looked at the children first, their pale faces, their thin arms, their hollow eyes, and something inside him hardened. He reached into his bag and pulled out food, real food, fresh bread, dried fruit, a flask of clean water. The smell made the children's eyes widen instantly, but they did not move. They looked to their mother, waiting for her signal. The mother's eyes filled with tears. Her heart screamed with both longing and fear. She had begged before, she had hoped before, and every time she had been punished, mocked, or hurt. Was this any different? Why would a stranger, a human, care for her and her children when even her own people had cast them out? The human extended the food gently, his voice steady. "Take it," he said softly. "It's for you and your children." The mother's lips parted, but no words came. Her pride battled with her desperation. She wanted to refuse, to stay strong, but the sight of her children's hungry eyes broke her last defenses. Slowly, with trembling hands, she reached out. She took the bread, holding it as if it were treasure. Her children looked at her. Waiting, she broke the bread into small pieces and placed it into their hands. The little one bit into it first, tears of relief running down his cheeks. The eldest ate quietly, his eyes never leaving the human. For the first time in many nights, their hunger eased. The mother's tears fell freely now. She pressed her forehead to the bread in her hands, whispering, "Thank you." Her voice was barely audible, but the human heard it, and he gave a small nod. In his eyes there was no pity, only resolve. He had found them by chance, but something in his heart told him it was not an accident. The crowd around them whispered. Aliens shook their heads, some even mocked, but the human ignored them completely. His attention stayed on the broken family before him. For the first time, someone had not walked past them. For the first time, someone had stopped. And in that moment, the cruel alien city no longer felt as hopeless as before. The mother held her children close, her heart filled with both fear and something new, a spark of hope. A stranger had appeared, and with him, the promise of change. But in a world this cruel, could one human truly make a difference? Asterisk. The mother's hand still trembled as she held the bread. Her children ate quietly, their small faces softening for the first time in many nights. But her heart was not calm. Every moment her eyes flicked to the human, wondering why. Why would he help them? Why would a stranger care when her own people had rejected her so completely? The human watched silently, his expression calm. He did not rush her, did not demand thanks. He only stayed close, making sure they were safe. The mother's voice finally broke the silence. "Why? Why are you doing this?" she asked softly. Her tone carried suspicion, fear, and a faint touch of hope. The human looked at her directly, his voice steady. "Because you need help, and I can give it." Simple words, yet they struck her like thunder. No one had ever spoken to her like that, not since her life had crumbled. Her throat tightened, her pride burning inside her chest. She wanted to believe him, but trust was dangerous. She had been deceived before, mocked before. Every kindness in this city had turned out to be a cruel game. Her eldest son leaned closer to her, whispering, "Mother, maybe he is different. Maybe he means it." His eyes were wide, full of cautious hope. The mother pressed his hand gently. She wanted to believe, but fear chained her heart. The human spoke again, his voice firm. You should not be living like this. Children should not be starving in the streets. He looked at the broken stones where they had slept. His jaw tightened, as if he could not accept such cruelty. Then he looked back at the mother. Come with me. I can give you shelter, food, and safety. Mother froze, her body stiff. His words were powerful, but they scared her. Leaving with a stranger? It could mean safety, or it could mean danger worse than the streets. Her children's lives were in her hands. She could not decide quickly. Her heart raced with fear and doubt. The little one tugged at her torn sleeve. Mother, please, I don't want to sleep on stones again. His voice was soft, innocent, and full of pain. The mother's eyes filled with tears. She kissed his head, whispering, I will not let you suffer, my love. She looked at the human again. Her voice sharp, filled with desperation. If you are lying, if you mean to harm us, I will fight you until my last breath. The human did not flinch. Instead, he nodded with respect. You are a mother. I would expect nothing less. Something in his tone felt different. Not pity, not mockery, but respect. It unsettled her, but also warmed her. Still, she hesitated. She turned her face away, whispering to herself, What? If this is a trap? What if tomorrow my children are taken from me? Her chest burned with doubt. The human stood and extended his hand. Choice is yours, he said calmly. I will not force you, but if you come, I promise you and your children will be safe. His words lingered in the air like a fragile rope, a rope that could pull them out of the darkness. If only she had the courage to hold on. Her eldest child looked at her with pleading eyes. Mother, please, let's try. What if this is the miracle you prayed for? His words stabbed her heart, because he was right. Just last night she had prayed to the stars for mercy, and now, here stood a stranger offering it. The crowd around them whispered. Some alien sneered. Look at that fool, wasting food on trash. Others laughed cruelly, but the human ignored them all. His focus never left the mother and her children. The mother's chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. Her arms tightened around her children. Every part of her screamed with fear. But the hunger in her children's eyes broke the chains of doubt. She reached slowly, carefully, her hand trembling. As she placed it into the human's grip was firm but gentle. He helped her to her feet. Her children clung to her, their small faces pressed against her sides. The human looked at them and gave a faint smile. Come, he said. You will not be alone anymore. The mother's heart raced. Was she walking into safety or into another trap? Every step felt heavy, uncertain. But for the first time in countless nights, she felt a spark inside her chest, a fragile, trembling spark of hope. The human led them away from the market, away from the cruel stares and mocking voices, the crowds. Laughter faded behind them. The mother turned once, glancing back at the streets that had been her prison. Her jaw tightened. Perhaps she was leaving behind her pain, or perhaps she was stepping into a new one. Either way, she knew one thing. This was a choice she had to make, for her children, for their survival. It was not just the human's choice anymore, it was hers too, and now their fates were tied together, for better or worse, asterisk asterisk. The human led them through the crowded streets. The mother's steps were slow and hesitant, her arms tightly holding her children. Every shadow felt dangerous, every whisper behind them made her tense. She was not used to trust, not after so many years of cruelty, but still she followed. Because for the first time in countless nights, there was something to follow, a fragile light in the darkness. The human walked with steady steps, his eyes scanning the streets. He seemed alert, as if protecting them from unseen dangers, whenever curious aliens stared too long. His gaze was sharp enough to make them turn away. The mother noticed it, his quiet strength, the way he carried himself, and though fear still held her heart, a small part of her began to believe. They left the market behind and moved through narrow alleys. The air grew quieter, the crowd thinner. Finally, the human stopped before a small transport, an old but sturdy craft resting on silent ground. Its surface was scratched, its paint faded, but to the mother and her children, it looked like a miracle. It was not the broken stones of the streets. It was not the cruel laughter of the crowd. It was shelter. The human turned to them. "You'll be safe here," he said simply, his voice calm and steady. The mother's heart pounded. Safe? The word felt strange on her tongue. She had not spoken it in years. Her eldest son stared at the ship with wide eyes. "Mother, is this really for us?" he whispered. She touched his cheek, her voice trembling. "I don't know, my son. But maybe." The human pressed a panel, and the doors of the craft opened with a hiss. Warm air flowed out, carrying the scent of cooked food and clean water. The children gasped softly, their eyes lighting up. They had forgotten what warmth smelled like. Inside, the lights were gentle, the space simple but clean. There were seats, blankets, and supplies neatly stored. To the mother, it felt like stepping into another world. The children rushed forward, touching everything with awe. The little one laughed a sound the mother had not heard in many nights. The eldest found a blanket and wrapped it around his brother, smiling weakly. The mother stood in the doorway, frozen. Her hands shook, her chest tight. She whispered to herself, "Is this real? Or just another dream that will vanish when I wake?" The human noticed her hesitation. "You can rest," he said gently. "No one will harm you here." His voice carried no force, no demand, only quiet certainty. The mother slowly stepped inside, her legs trembling. She sat down against the wall, her children crawling close to her, the warmth of the ship wrapped around them. And for the first time in a long time, she did not feel the sting of the cold. The human placed food on a small table. It was simple bread, fruits, and water, but to the family it was a feast. The children ate eagerly, tears streaming down their cheeks. The mother could not eat at first, her throat blocked by emotion. But when the human gently placed a piece of bread in her hand, she broke down. Tears flowed as she took a bite. The taste was soft, warm, full of life. It was not just food, it was dignity. After they ate, the children curled up on the soft seats, their small bodies relaxed for the first time in days. The youngest fell asleep quickly, a peaceful smile on his face. The eldest leaned against his mother, his breathing steady. The mother stroked their hair, her heart overflowing with relief and fear. She looked at the human, who sat quietly across from them, his eyes watchful. Finally she whispered, "Why are you doing this? You don't even know us." The human leaned back, his gaze thoughtful. "I know enough," he said. "I know you've suffered. I know your children deserve more than stones and hunger. And I know someone has to care, even if no one else will." The mother lowered her eyes, her hands trembling. His words sank deep into her heart. She wanted to believe them, but trust was still fragile. She asked softly, almost in fear, "And if tomorrow you change your mind? If tomorrow you decide we are nothing?" The human shook his head firmly. "Tomorrow I will still be here. You and your children are safe now. That is my choice, and I will not turn away." Her chest tightened, her tears spilling freely. She had lived in a world where mercy was weakness, where kindness was rare. Yet here was a stranger, offering both without hesitation. For the first time in years, she felt the weight on her shoulders lift slightly. The ship hummed softly around them, a cocoon of safety. The children slept peacefully, dreaming of things beyond hunger and pain. The mother stayed awake, watching the human in silence, her heart still cautious, still guarded. But deep inside, a seed had been planted, a seed of trust, of hope, a belief that maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something new. Outside, the alien city carried on as usual. Cruel voices, cold eyes, and empty hearts filled the streets. But inside the small craft, warmth glowed. A fragile family had been given a chance to breathe, to rest, to dream again. The mother kissed her children's foreheads. She whispered to them, "Sleep, my loves, sleep in peace." Her voice cracked with emotion. For the first time, her words were not lies. Tonight, they were safe. And as she leaned back, her own eyes heavy with exhaustion, she allowed herself to whisper one final thought. Maybe this is not the end. Maybe this is the new beginning we prayed for. ***. The night passed quietly inside the human's ship. The mother slept for the first time in many nights without fear. Her children rested peacefully, their small bodies warm under blankets. For once, hunger did not wake them in the dark. For once, their dreams were not broken by the cold. When morning came, soft light filled the cabin. The mother opened her eyes slowly, unsure if it was still real. For a moment, she feared it had all been a dream, that she would wake again on the broken stones with nothing. But then she saw her. Children curled beside her, smiling in their sleep. And she saw the human preparing food at a small counter. It was real. Her heart trembled with relief. The smell of warm bread filled the air. The little one stirred awake, his eyes wide with excitement. "Mother, food again?" he whispered. The mother kissed his forehead, tears in her eyes. "Yes, my love, food again." The eldest sat up slowly, his face brighter than before. For the first time there was hope in his eyes. The human placed the food before them. "Eat," he said simply, his voice calm. The children ate happily, and the mother watched them with a heart full of gratitude. She took a piece for herself, her hands still trembling. Every bite felt like a promise that life could change. After the meal, the human spoke. "You don't belong in those streets. That city has no place for you or your children. But with me, you can have a second chance." The mother froze, her eyes searching his face. "Second chance?" she whispered. The human nodded. "Yes, a new life, a safe home, a future for your children." Her heart ached with both hope and fear. She wanted to believe him, but the wounds of rejection were still fresh. She had been thrown away once. How could she trust this promise? What if the world rejects us again? She asked quietly. The human's gaze was steady. "Then we will face it together," he said firmly. "You will not be alone." Those words struck her deeply. For years she had carried everything alone. The hunger, the pain, the shame. No one had stood beside her, but this man, this stranger, offered his strength without hesitation. Her tears fell silently. She pressed her children close, and for the first time she let herself believe. The human showed them around the ship. There were bunks to sleep in, storage full of food, even books and tools that fascinated the eldest child. The little one laughed as he explored, his small hands touching every corner. Their voices filled the ship with life, and the mother watched them with a heart that felt lighter than ever. That evening, as the sun set outside, the family sat together in the warm cabin. The human listened to the children's laughter, and for a moment, he too felt peace. The mother turned to him, her voice soft but strong. "You have given us more than food or shelter. You have given us dignity again." The human shook his head gently. "No, you always had dignity. The world just refused to see it." Her eyes glistened with tears. She bowed her head slightly, whispering, "Then let me say what I never thought I would say again. Thank you." Her words were simple, but her heart poured through them. The human gave a faint smile. "You don't need to thank me. Just live. Just keep moving forward. That will be enough." The children leaned against their mother, their small hands clinging to her torn clothes. But tonight, those clothes no longer carried shame. They were simply reminders of what they had survived, of the cruelty they had endured, and of the hope they had finally found. The mother closed her eyes and whispered a final prayer to the stars. Not of despair this time, but of gratitude. "Thank you for sending us someone who could see us. Thank you for giving us a second chance." The ship hummed softly as night fell again. Outside, the alien city carried on, cruel and heartless as always, but inside the small craft, warmth glowed. A broken family had been lifted from the shadows. A human stranger had given them not just survival, but the gift of tomorrow, and so their story changed. No longer just about pain, but about hope, courage, and love. The cruel society had rejected them, but a human had seen their worth, and because of that, A mother and her children were no longer forgotten. They had been given a second chance. A chance to live, to dream, to begin again, ***.